So I finally muddled my ass through Jedi Survivor's still pretty bad PC performance. I talked about the game and its horrible state that it released in back around its launch day. In that video, I mentioned possibly refunding the game on Steam and just going with the PlayStation 5 version, as that was rumored to be the best, most stable experience from what I was seeing. And honestly, even though it was performing pretty badly, I did still enjoy the game. I just didn't want my PC to melt or me to continue to get some type of headache due to the game's stutter. So I ended up doing just that. I refunded the game. It was great. I got it on PlayStation 5, regretted absolutely nothing until I decided to make a nice gesture and give my PlayStation 5 to my brother, and bam, back on PC, bitch. Bottom line, from my experience, it's much better from launch, but still a bit rough on performance here and there. Almost no crashes, and almost, emphasis on almost, no bugs. There was a couple times where the game froze. It dropped to about damn near 2 frame rates. Hell if I knew if my system was even on and up and running. The game was running about efficiently as my 80-year-old grandmother running up and down the stairs. Whatever you want to happen just wasn't going to happen, realistically speaking. You just got to come to terms with that. Thankfully, it wasn't that big of a problem. I just had to reset the game and I was back in business, but it happened a few times, and after a month or so of the game's release, it's still worth mentioning these types of bugs because, like everyone has said time and again, the game should not be releasing in this type of state. And it's unfortunate because that's really why this game has so many mixed reviews. It's basically boiling down to the game's performance. When you look objectively at Jedi Survivor, it's bigger and better in damn near every way. The game takes place 5 years after the events of Fallen Order. Cal is older. He's much more talented with his skill set. He's not a blossoming little boy anymore that seems naive. You know, you don't get that weird teacher-student relationship that seems to be so prominent in the news lately. Read between the lines there. Rather, you know, he's grown into his own. He's not a student anymore. And Respawn makes that clear in a few ways, both in gameplay and in their narrative approach. Like I was saying, the game takes place 5 years after the events of Fallen Order. Cal has kind of broken off from his team from Fallen Order, with the game opening up with him working very closely with a few bounty hunters that disguise an attack on a senator of the Empire by making it seem like these bounty hunters are presenting him as some type of prisoner or gift to the senator, only to reveal that it was basically a trap. And actually, this entire opening section I think is done phenomenally well. The opening planet, Coruscant, is basically a giant tutorial system that introduces the player to not only, you know, setting up the narrative, but also its training. Jedi Survivor has various stances similar to if you ever played Ghost of Tsushima. They're not one-to-one alike type of systems. Ghost, you know, based on the enemy that you're fighting, is going to determine the type of stance you're going to use, as that is basically the stance that's useful against that particular enemy type, versus here in Jedi Survivor, depending on the stance you use is going to determine your moveset, your level of aggression, how big your stamina bar is, how much distance you can cover, things like that. You know, there's 4 stances total. You can only equip 2 stances at any given time, which I think is kind of unfortunate. I think it's a little stupid. You know, if you're a Jedi and your lightsaber can make these alterations practically on the whim, and once you get the blaster, it's always on your hip. So it would have made sense for them to kind of go the route of Ghost of Tsushima, where you just kind of hold a button and press another button on a controller, and then you could just swap between those stances back and forth. That way you're not restricted to just 2 particular stances and then have to go to a meditation spot in order to swap one of those 2 out. But I think the stances were a great addition to the game. You know, I don't want to keep comparing Fallen Order to Survivor, but Survivor really does double down on the gameplay aspect. You know, I wasn't a huge fan of Fallen Order, not saying it was bad by any means. I just felt like the combat was a lot more punitive. The map in that game sucked ass. It's no different in this game, to be honest with you, but the combat was a little bit more punitive, and Fallen Order seemed to take more of a narrative approach that seemed to be front and center, with Respawn really focusing on setting up the world and kind of trying to find that groove with a new Star Wars title. With Survivor, I don't want to give off the impression that that narrative approach takes a step back, but obviously whenever you're looking at a sequel, you want to improve in every single way, but there's always going to be one primary focus, and with Survivor, it is definitely the combat. The stances complement different play styles. You know, you can swap between back and forth. Every single stance has a dedicated skill tree, and at any point you can respec any of your skill points, so you're not stuck with one particular stance. And there's various ways to earn skill points, not only through earning XP by killing bosses, you know, hitting bounty hunters, which again, props to Respawn, man. They really blew this game out of the water. There's various planets. Each planet isn't as linear as Fallen Order's systems were, where, you know, you kind of had a linear path. And these planets, they're still linear, but there's, you know, ways you can basically explore, stumble across new bosses or enemy types, legendary animals, forced hairs, echoes. You can find any type of cosmetics, from Cal's hair, his beard, clothes, how his lightsaber looks, how BD1 looks, and every one of these items can all be found on one of the 6 planets inside Jedi Survivor. And on top of those 6 planets, 2 of said planets are full-blown hub worlds. You know, there's meditation spots, there's little extra areas you can explore in said hubs, you know, conversations to have with NPCs in the world, and I found myself to actually enjoy every single part of it. But without a doubt, the combat has been the biggest treat here. I do want to touch very briefly on the story. There was so many twists that I did not see coming. In Fallen Order, hands down, my favorite part of that game's story was actually the flashback scene, the betrayal of the clones against Cal and his master, and watching him slowly reconnect himself to the Force and remember everything he can do. And then in Survivor, not only does he build off of those core elements, those fundamentals, you know, skills that you earned in last game are actually not taken from you from the beginning. So that's cool. You're basically building off of what Fallen Order established, which I think was a great design. But as far as the story goes, well, I said it's not as, seemingly not as much of a focus with Survivor. It is by no means bad or pulling any punches. There's a lot of hitting boss fights. The ending boss fight, without a doubt, was the hardest one, and just finding out who it was surprised the shit out of me. It was like everything I knew up until that point was an utter lie. It was like finding out that I was adopted at the age of 42. I just didn't want to continue. Everything I knew was an absolute lie. But the voice acting in this game, phenomenal. Sound effects, phenomenal. I think Respawn has handled the story very well. It looks like they're setting this game up to be a bridge to a third game, potentially the last one. I mean, it's obviously way too early to speak about it, but just the way the game ends and how the story continues, not only Cal's personal journey from Fallen Order, but how it sets up of how he's going to continue to grow, potentially, massive spoiler, embrace the dark side, and moving into a potential third entry into the game. I think that's going to give him obviously even more Force abilities, even more skill set and moves with the lightsaber, and I'm all for it. It would be awesome if Respawn can bring some type of karma system similar to the Infamous games, where if you lean one way or another, whether you're going light or dark side, you get specific move sets tailored to Cal. You know, you have different Force abilities, different lightsaber attacks that are tailored specifically to you. Obviously, that's a massive undertaking, so I think that is going to be something that's probably unrealistic. That's going to depend on a lot of decisions that the player makes, and that's going to be a lot of variables that Respawn is going to have to take into consideration, but that'll be a massive way for them to really elevate the third entry into the series, assuming we even get one. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about Jedi Survivor. I just beat the game. There's a New Game Plus. I started it. The cosmetics in New Game Plus, and even the perks of randomizing the enemy encounters, I think breathes a brand new breath of life into the game. And that's one of the things I've really come to appreciate about Jedi Survivor. Not only, it's not that you're particularly dealing with massive amounts of troops, but it's the different, I really hate this analogy, but it's the different chess pieces. Every enemy complements each other in one way or another, so it's not that you're dealing with a large group of enemies in any particular fight. It's the fact that you're dealing with a few long-range units, some pressure units, and some mid-range units, and so your priorities are constantly shifting in the middle of a fight. And the fact that you can double jump later on in the game, you can air dash, Cal's given this level of mobility that you're able to really prioritize and move around every particular counter in a specific way that gives you that freedom where you can be able to switch up enemy priorities on the fly, and you don't have to worry so much about it. And that is something I really hope they bring back into the third entry, should we see one. But let me know what you guys think. Did you guys play Jedi Survivor? What did you come to appreciate and love the most about it? How has your performance been about the game, and what platform have you been on? Let's talk down in the comment section. Like always, guys, my name is Cynic. Thank you so much for watching, but until next time, I will see you on the next video. And hey, maybe consider joining the Discord. Link is down in the pinned comment. There's over 3,000 members in there, so if you want to talk shit to me directly or just pick a fight with a random stranger on the internet, which is always fun, that's your link.